Now he's making a case for Sparta. He's making a case here that Athens isn't so great compared to Sparta, and Sparta wasn't so lowly culturally as everyone says. He says, thinking about this is fuzzy. Quote, Athens was not perfect either. That's no argument. And if Spartan cultural independence dwindled, so too did that of most Greek states from the late 6th century onward. Yes, most Greek states, but not Athens. In its chosen fields of political and military activity, Sparta was long, highly successful, and produced a number of outstanding leaders. No one begrudges them that. So he just names a couple stupid things, points that don't stand against Spartan history, and then says, plus they were good at the military. We already know that. Political correctness, is that what that is right there? Or multiculturalism? Or what is that sneaking in there? Why is he defending Sparta? Let's continue. Spartan conquest of the Peloponnesus up to 490 BC. The political and social system of Sparta was focused upon one primary aim, that of securing the domination of the Spartan equals at home. The military machine that resulted was so far superior to that of the neighbors of Sparta that it was used by the kings of the 6th century to extend Spartan rule over virtually all the Peloponnesus except for Argos, which was nonetheless crippled in the decisive battle of Thyrea in 546. Interesting story there to be told, perhaps. I don't know how much record there is available about it, but thereafter, quote, in this extension, the Spartans did not try to reduce conquered peoples to the level of the Messenian Helots, for this would have extended their direct responsibility far too widely. Instead, the Spartans made their neighbors dependent allies. So they destroyed the city, then made them a dependent people, but not a Helot people. So they didn't want to rule this area. They already ruled more area than anybody else. It's like the Soviet Union versus America. America's big, but the Soviet Union's huge. And America is all powerful. But the Soviet Union had a good military in this ancient scenario. Not the case in the modern situation. Other than that, a lot of things do hold. There are also profitable ways to look at the situation of Sparta versus Athens as England versus France. That's profitable in some cases. So they made their neighbors dependent allies. Since they threw out tyrannies in favor of oligarchies, the upper classes in many districts welcomed Spartan protection. So they allowed oligarchical rule instead of the tyrants. Remember, the tyrants had taken hold over almost all the Greek city-states over a period of a century and a half, 2 centuries. The Spartans removed the tyrant and installed oligarchy. Cleomenes, king from 520 to 490, was one of the greatest leaders in this expansion, but in 506 he failed to carry the Spartan allies into a full-scale attack on Cleisthenic Athens. So there must have been some bizarre conditions where, quote, he failed to carry the Spartan allies into a full attack. Should have, would have, could have, what? On Cleisthenic Athens. That's the Athens of Cleisthenes. The result was a major reorganization of the Spartan alliance into an organization of 2 parts. The regular Spartan assembly on the one side, and a congress of representatives from the allies on the other. Only a policy approved by both sides could be executed. Megara, Corinth, Tegea, Elis, and other states in the alliance thus might feel that they had a voice in common decisions. All those city-states were part of an alliance, some of them subject to Sparta. Now, they previously didn't have a say, but they were given a say because of this situation where they didn't attack Athens. So there was upheaval. By 500, Sparta had become the greatest military power in mainland Greece, and its aid was widely sought by the islanders and overseas Greeks as well. On the whole, Spartan leaders followed a consistent policy of opposing outside intervention in Greece by Persia or by any other power. Fine to have wars amongst themselves, but nobody outside had best come in. and a policy of maintaining their own dominance within Greece, and of fostering generally stable political conditions. The expansive tendencies of Athens were as yet too weak to present any real threat, so Sparta and Athens were able to cooperate against the great Persian onslaughts, which followed shortly after 500. As that struggle was to prove, Greece needed both the quick-witted maritime genius of the Athenians and the firm, stable leadership of the Spartans. Now we're going to look at the other Greek states, a few other situations. From the 6th century onwards, Sparta and Athens are the states which we can best follow, but never in Greek history is it proper to concentrate solely on these two leaders. The Acarnanians, the Aetolians, and other Greeks dwelling in the forests and fertile plains of northwest Greece remained backward tribal peoples. To their east lay the large but weak kingdom of Macedonia. This was not counted as Greece, though its stock was closely related. From Macedonia and Thrace came timber, ships' stores, and other materials to the Greek cities along the Aegean coast. Just south of Macedonia lay the fertile plain of Thessaly, farmed by serfs for the great landlords. In the 7th century, Thessaly grew powerful, not as a polis, but as a virtual kingdom, under a war chief, Ortegos. Take a look where Thessaly is. It was an exception to the city-state in Greece. Quote, during the First Sacred War, which resulted in the internationalization of Delphi, the Thessalians drove southward into central Greece, and for a time in the 6th century it appeared as if two powers from north and south, Thessaly and Sparta, would gain mastery over all the intervening states. But the early promise of Thessaly was not so solidly based as was that of Sparta. The jealous Thessalian nobles refused to support their war chief, and the office of Tegos was passed from one house to another. In the decline of Thessaly, one can see how much strength the polis structure gave other Greeks. Throughout southern and central Greece, most areas were organized as city-states, but various religious and political groupings tended to mitigate the inherent tendencies of the Greeks to locate particularism. The Phocians formed a federal league of city-states and tribes. In Boeotia, a league of city-states more or less under the control of Thebes existed throughout most of Greek history. One fringe state of Boeotia, Plataea, was allied to Athens, and another, Oropos, actually joined Athens. Many states and tribes belonged to the major religious league, the Amphictyony of Delphi. Very close cultural links, as between Boeotia and Attica, or between Corinth and Argos, can also be detected. Each of the Greek islands commonly formed a single state. Crete, which fell ever more into backwater, was too large to be united, and Rhodes, Rhodes, was divided into 3 states until much later. As trade and industry grew from the 8th century on, the islanders flourished. Aegina, in the Saronic Gulf, where's the Saronic Gulf at? Was one of the earliest states to coin money, and was as powerful on the sea as Athens down to 500. Naxos was outstanding under a tyrant Lygdamis, who was aided by Pisistratus, and Lygdamis in turn helped Polycrates to become tyrant of Samos around 540. Where's Samos at? You should have your map in front of you. Although attacked by a Spartan and Corinthian fleet, Polycrates held his position and dominated much of the Aegean until he was caught and crucified by the Persians about 523. Now, he basically was a huckster who took advantage of a situation he saw available. He saw no strong states in the whereabouts, and he built a strong state on his island, and then he used the strong navy to go around and cause problems, tax passing ships. What's that? That's pirates. And eventually the Persians, in the interest of law and order, sort of, snuffed out this early state, because he was misacting a bit of a punk there.